Today I wanted to do another sit down and relaxing video where I just talk about my favorite artists that I follow on Instagram. I've drawn on their artwork many times before in the past, and they've really helped me kind of expand my own perspective of what I can do to my own artwork by incorporating something within theirs. In a way, it's inspiration because it helps me figure out new things that I can do with my own artwork, or even a new subject matter that I can focus on. But it's also inspirational in a small business perspective because I see that all these small artists are really able to make a living off of their work, which is every artist's dreams. It's just really inspiring, and it helps get me motivated because I want to get to that point at some point as well. It was really hard for me to narrow down my picks, and I actually have a lot to show today, but I figured we'd go through each of them one by one really quickly just so we can go through all of them. And if you find someone that you really enjoy, I'll have all the artists linked in my description below. And with that, let's get started on the first artist. Number one, we have Morgan Eccles. So Morgan is someone who introduced me to hard edge painting. I didn't know this was a thing before I saw her artwork. And what really drew me into her specifically was her use of color. I just feel like the way she's able to visualize what colors will look good together and visualize how to understand a very smooth transitioning gradient is so impressive to me. The way she's able to gradually go from one color to another, it's a very seamless transition. You would almost never know that each one of those was painted separately and hand mixed. She hand mixes all her paints as well, so it's crazy to me that she is able to see subtle changes to be able to know this is enough of a change to be able to make this gradient the way I want it to. She is very geometric in all her paintings, which is also new to me because I never would have thought that you would be able to do all of these things with just circles is what she really specializes in. So for example, this one, the use of color in it is phenomenal in its own, but the way she's able to kind of create a different shape just from using concentric circles by breaking it up with smaller circles is genius to me. She can make it look as if there's a glare on the paper without there actually being a glare. It's just her use of colors. This one is one of my favorite paintings that I've ever seen of hers. It's literally just concentric circles, but the way she decides to use what looks like seemingly random colors is able to create this glitchy, almost three-dimensional feel to the painting. And this is another one that I love that she did. It's another take on her concentric circles, but it gives like a very trippy, almost holographic vibe to it just from looking at it. And that's another thing with her use of colors. She's able to make it look as if things are glowing just from her use of colors. If you look at it closely, it's not even white. It's just like a lighter blue next to a light green, but from far away, it makes it look as if it's glowing, which is just crazy to me. She's really talented in terms of her coloring and her use of, shapes and being able to do so many different dynamic paintings just from that. Next up, we have Nick Boltzmann. So he is another one that I really looked for inspiration when I was doing hard edge paintings, but also trying to incorporate fluid acrylics into it. He is someone where I thought I was doing big things. I thought I was being innovative. And then I looked at his page and I was like, wow, this is just beyond what I was, able to imagine. This is one of my favorite ones that he's ever done. He also has really cool names for each of his paintings as well that really, I feel like, encapsulates it so well. Like this one's called Maelstrom, which I don't even know what that means, but I just feel like it's the perfect name for it. I like to think of this one as if it's some kind of like solar storm, and he uses a lot of spray painting in his paintings, and I love the way he's able to make this globe in here look like it's glowing from his use of spray paint. He also does that a lot, being able to make glowing rings from his spray paints. And again, his paintings, the way he's able to make it look as if it's three-dimensional, like you can see the rings and all of the different swivels that's going around it. It makes it look as if it's actually three-dimensional because it goes behind the subject matter. Again, his use of color is amazing as well. So it's just, it's beautiful. Next up, we have Me Paintings. So Me was the first person that I found that I felt like was doing something with their fluid acrylics that wasn't just taking a blow dryer and blowing it around. I felt like she was adding things to it to make it more unique. I was trying to figure out a way to not make my painting so boring by just like blowing around the acrylic paint, you know? And she is able to upscale her paintings by just adding something simple to it, such as these bubbles. I never would have thought of that. Again, these artists always amaze me because they find other ways to make what is usually kind of a boring painting into something that's exciting for the viewer. And just by adding these 3D bubbles to them, these 3D water droplets, she's able to make just a boring fluid acrylics into this really cool painting. So she does this to a lot of other paintings as well. She really loves, you know, making flowers. She loves doing this like stone dragon scale type of texture to her paintings. She really likes to make, like, look at that. That is just, wow. The amount of texture and uniqueness to her paintings, you can just tell when you look at them, they're all from her style as well, which is something that I really liked because she seems to have a wide variety of paintings on her channel, but every single one of them I feel like screams that it's hers. Next up, we have Liz M. Clark. So with Liz, what I really like about her work is also her smooth gradients within her work, but also the way she's able to do abstract art, but make it look, again, very intentional. It still feels as if like everything is very planned out and the composition is just very nice as well. This is one of my recent favorite paintings that she's done. So as you can see, it kind of seems like she's winging it, but also planning it and fixing the composition as she goes to make it more pleasing and more balanced as well. These squiggly lines, I just love them. It adds a little more texture and a little more excitement to the painting as with these little bubbles. And I also just love how even with abstract art, she's able to kind of convey, this looks like it's underwater, you know? Nothing about it really screams water other than the color. You know, what I think of when I see this painting is when you're a child and you kind of like to go underwater and look up at the water while you're down there, maybe blow a couple of bubbles to the surface to just see how it is, and then you start swimming to the surface. This is kind of what it makes me think of when I see this painting, and it's called Find My Way, and I just think, again, it's a very suitable name for this painting. As you can see lately, she's been getting more adventurous with her work because I started following her when she was still doing these more basic pieces, which are beautiful. They're very simplistic, they're very nice to look at, but I feel like the work that she's doing now is more adventurous and she's trying to figure out other ways to use what is known as her style, and I really admire that she's able to do that, but still everything feels as if it's from her, but it also is very different from the work she used to do. Next up is Paints V. So I love looking at her paintings, see at Color Inspo. The way she pairs up these pastel-y colors together really make everything pop, and she uses a lot of different colors within her paintings, colors that I probably wouldn't have paired together. I'm really trying to be able to incorporate more colors into my paintings, and the colors that she chooses make everything feel a little ethereal and like very morning glow, fairy-like. I never would have paired these colors together like I was saying, and so I really like to use her page to draw on a color palette that maybe I can use in my own painting because she is very adventurous with her colors, but it always turns out very nice. So next we have the Obanoth Hannah Webb. So I loved Hannah's paintings at first because this is a style that I don't even know the name of. I guess it's called like block coloring or flat art style almost, but she's able to kind of create these dimensions and 3D feelings without blending any of her colors. And if you are someone who uses gouache, watercolor, anything, we are big fans of blending out our colors. And I love that she uses this kind of like blocky shape. It almost feels as if it's like computer pixelated generated paintings or something. I don't know how she's able to understand where to shade. I really admire the way she's able to create these three-dimensional shapes with these hard block edges, because I really shy away from having hard edges in my paintings because I'm afraid of it looking cartoony. But she kind of embraces that. It does look cartoony, but it also looks realistic in a way too. I don't really know how. I would love to be able to, like, I don't know, take an art class from her or something to be able to understand how she's understanding shading so well without blending it in. This brings me into Mr. Anderson. So Mr. Anderson, he paints skateboard decks, and he has the same style as the Obanoth Hannah Webb in a way where it's very like flat art style, but it's very beautiful and it looks as if it's cartoony but also 3D at the same time. So he uses spray painting but also acrylic paint, and he uses everything. His paintings are very reminiscent to, I think you've seen the kind of like Japanese art style, the Japanese anime lo-fi art style, and the use of his colors and the use of his shadings that he's able to do. It almost looks as if it's like digital art. Like some of it is digital art. I think this is digital art. But when he does his skateboard decks, it's not digital art. But he's able to make his skateboard decks look as if it's digital art based on like his art style and also the colors that he chooses. So I really also take color inspiration from him as well, because I would love to do like a collection where I do kind of lo-fi themed paintings, and I think his page is kind of the perfect way for me to be able to draw inspiration from. Again, his use of colors is the same as the Obanoth, where I'm like, he's not really blending at all, but he's making each of the shading very distinct and very blocky, and able to create shadows in that way, which is something that I definitely shy away from and that I'm like afraid to do. He also does a lot of outlining in his work, which is also another thing that I tend to shy away from, but I really like the way he does it, so it's kind of making me feel as if, you know, maybe it's not that bad to look kind of cartoony. I kind of like that look as well. So whenever I paint, I just kind of gravitate naturally towards realism, but I really like how surreal and like cartoony it looks. Next up we have Nakaki Pants, Nakaki-san. But this is the kind of Japanese style that I was talking about. I love their work. It feels like it's digital art. I'm not sure if it is or if it's not, but I think it might be. Even so, I am a huge fan of digital art. I would love to be able to be a digital artist. I would love to be able to learn. It feels very overwhelming now, but the use of colors here makes it feel very retro and very like 1990s anime, which I love. So it also kind of feels like it's an old ad or something. Like even this feels like it's an old ad, but what a cool painting, what a cool poster. And again, it's the whole like cartoony, very in your face shading and blocking that gives it that 3D feel to it that I just really admire that people can do. Next up we have Meek Art. Meek is a graffiti artist, and I love graffiti. I love the look of it. I love the weird, I don't even know what you would call this, outlandish, like almost feels like Coward the Cowardly Dog type of like weirdness to it, to all of his artwork. His use of color is just freaking amazing. Are you kidding me? Like look at this. The composition is good all on its own, but the way he's able to kind of like do very seamless transitions, like this is the background here, and then it turns into this man's face, but he recalls this color in this woman's face, and then he uses this as like a room divider almost for the painting to be able to do a realistic portrait here, and this Cowboy Bebop-esque guy shooting this space rifle and this old movie, like what is even going on here? I don't know, but that's the beauty of graffiti. It almost seems as if it's like a paper mache collage type of thing that's going on that he's able to do really well. And I really admire that because I love the colors that he uses. It's very bright and catches your eye. It's like messy but not at the same time. Oh my gosh, he's just so talented. Next up we have Kiara in the Forest. Now, her work is just freaking beautiful, you know? She really does this thing where she paints on black sketchbook paper, which again is something that I've never thought of before that I would love to try one day. But she's really good at creating kind of like dark, mythical, forest type paintings, which is such a cool vibe. It's very like kind of things that I want to create as well. It gives a very like fantastical feeling to it. She does tutorials a little bit of how to paint certain things because she's also really good at painting things that are glowing as well using gouache. Like hello, that's crazy to me that she does such a good job from doing that. It kind of just gives me the confidence to not have to put so much pressure on myself to make something look realistic, but having my own style and being able to make it look cartoony and maybe not as real is also like a very big appeal nowadays. And I feel like for me, if I like your work because it doesn't look realistic, I mean, you know, this forest elf thing is not a real thing, but the whole point of it is to make it kind of look as if it's like your imagination. Next up we have Maddie Belwar, Lucky Melon. She focuses on, of course you can see foliage and grass and everything, and she is the one who I really learned how to do grass and foliage and leaves from. I love drawing nature, so being able to learn from her just based on these videos that she posts of how she like kind of draws it out lightly first and then kind of goes into it in more depth later, really helps me to be able to not be super specific at first and just kind of layer on layer and just kind of trust the process. Oh my gosh, look at that, that's just beautiful. Next we have Gizem Boskert, and she does kind of these what almost looks like journal entry paintings, and I love her style because she's painting all different subject matters, you know, nothing is the same, but every single thing that she paints gives that same like nostalgic, cozy home feeling to it. So I really admire everything that she paints. Next up we have Matt Gibbons, who is a very, very talented, I guess, plein air artist. So he does like really quick ink sketches and then very quick watercoloring based on what he sees, and it is just absolutely beautiful. So for me, I always get caught up on details whenever I do realistic drawings, and I always like drawing this one person but it never looks perfect, so I'm erasing and doing it again, and then I can never get the person right and then I just give up, right? But he's such a good example of someone who leaves out the small details, for example, this person right here, and just focuses on the big picture, which is the airplane. And because of that, it gives a very complete feeling to it. You don't have to completely sketch out in detail this person right here, but I know it's a person, right? And even this plane, the wheels and the windows, they're just circles. You know, he didn't really include much to it, but it feels as if it's realistic enough that you know what it is, and it also gives a certain style to his paintings, which I really love. He even does that to portraits as well, and I suck at portraits, so like you can see right here the lack of detail that's going on here, but it's not needed, you know, and in a way you also love the look of that as well. You don't want it to look super detailed, especially for this style that he's got going on. This maybe took him, I don't even know, 15 minutes to draw, and it just looks so beautiful. I would have gotten so caught up just looking inside of the shop and how I would have figured out the perspective, the stuff inside the shop. These people here, I would have got caught up in their clothing or something. But he just like really focuses on the big picture to be able to portray what's going on in the scene. So Jeed is another ink artist that I follow. I love ink drawings, as you can tell. So he does really, I would say, detailed ink drawings, and he does shading with his ink as well. Jeed keeps his work black and white. He uses different shades of those markers in order to portray the shadows in his artwork, which I think is just brilliant. It's such an easy way to make your painting more dynamic. He already does shading with his ink pen or marker, whatever he uses, but he goes in it more, especially with the buildings you're able to see. Let me see if I can find it. But he's able to do shadows with just a couple of different colored markers that are in different shades of gray to make his drawings way more dynamic than you would ever even imagine. Here we have Cassandra Akori, and she is a gouache artist, and I really, really admire the way she uses gouache. It's very realistic, but also very indicative of her style as well. It is so hard to draw glass, right? To paint glass, to be able to do all these little reflections, but I feel like she did it so well on the vase itself, but also the reflection on the table to show that it is like glistening. You know, just the rips in the playing card is very, very impressive the way she did it. Oh my gosh, like you can see that this is glazed, right? Because of the glistening details that she's able to put using gouache, which is very crazy. And again, I really admire her use of color as well, because this is obviously I don't know if this is the tablecloth that she has or if she just kind of put colors behind, but I love the colors that she chose. It's a really good composition. It's a really good color palette to flatter her subject matter as well. So again, really admire the work that she does, really admire the colors that she uses to keep it more exciting, and it's not just, you know, a regular still life. It's really exciting to look at. And the last artist that we have is Agnes. Agnes is a portrait oil painter. And like I said before, I suck at portraits. And so I really admire her work. Again, it gives this like very rustic feel to it. The colors that she uses here really gives me the like train spotting vibes, you know? I don't really know how she picks these colors, but it feels as if like it's an A24 movie. Blue hue tints in their movies, blue green rather than like the warm tone. This like very accurately, I feel like, portrays like you're in the city late at night, you have that awful yellow lighting ahead of you and it makes everything kind of look yellowy, blue and green, but it just has a certain vibe to it. And so I think she's really talented. She's really great with portraits. She's really good at painting other stuff as well. I mean, the whole stall itself is just such a feat to be able to paint this. Are you kidding me? So yeah, really admire her work. She's so talented. And that is it for today's video. These are my favorite artists that I follow on Instagram in no particular order. Like I said, I showed a lot of artists today, but it was really hard for me to narrow down my picks. But I hope that showing you guys these artists will help to motivate you, but also inspire you if you're also experiencing some type of artist block. I think we are all talented and we can all stand to learn something from each other. And it's honestly what keeps art so exciting, right? Learning something new, trying new things, feeling new inspiration, learning about a new subject matter, trying a new medium. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.